let me do some quick intros of our panelists, and then we'll get started. So Paul LaFlamme, and we want to get that right, Paul. It's LaFlamme.
Sure.
Okay, that's the official French-Canadian pronunciation, I'm sure. Is the CEO of Centrend, based in Worcester and in Sturbridge, Mass, and providing on-site information technology, management services, and consulting to business customers throughout New England. Is that fairly accurate, Paul?
It is.
No rebuttal?
No rebuttal.
Okay, good.
Covered it well.
All right. And our other panelist is Lisa Fischer, owner of Lisa Fischer Photography, based in Milton, Mass, and specializing in corporate photography and family portraiture. How'd I do?
Great.
Okay, all right. So why don't we get started? I want to start by first saying I woke up with a very wrinkled seersucker green striped shirt. And in recognition of this event, I got out my steamer because I don't know how to iron, and steamed the heck out of this shirt, and then put on matching green glasses. I hope you can see that, but that is my contribution to getting ready for a Zoom meeting. And it leads me to ask first question, Lisa, why does it matter to take those steps in preparation for a Zoom meeting?
Oh goodness, that's a really good way to start. So yeah, I mean, everything changed, right, with this pandemic. We all, went inside. We're all virtually on Zoom now. And in the beginning, I feel like it was, we got to really cut each other some slack. We've got to give each other a lot of grace right now. That was probably one of my favorite sayings, like, hey, we're all doing the best we can. We just have to help each other. The dogs barking, kids coming online. We've seen some of those clips from, I don't know what news station it was, but it was really cute. But it's a year later, and the way we even do business has changed now. So we have to, we have to do our best. We have to have a better best now on our online presence. And I know for me, I do a lot more on Zoom, where I used to do everything in person with my consultation sessions or my sales sessions. And now we're doing a lot on Zoom. So it is super important, the same way that we, if we would go and meet with someone in person, like what Steve said, we would have our clothes ironed or steamed. We would be in our right mind. We would have our hair done, whatever. So now that we're in Zoom, we've got to show professionalism in Zoom. So that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today. But, it's no longer like, just accept me as I am. Don't this is, whatever circumstance. No, if you want to be the one that people are going to take seriously, then you have to take yourself seriously and get yourself set up, before you do your Zoom sessions. And, we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I think with the, going forward, we're going to be this way for a long time. So we want to look really professional, and that's our goal, is to help with that today.
Thank you, Lisa. And so one of the things that we start with when we have clients who are in particular, they might be doing a Zoom podcast, and part of that appearance is the name below in your box. And how do you want to present yourself so that as a visual, people have some takeaway and memory? And Paul, I turn that over to you. You want to do a quick tutorial on that?
Sure. And I think it's important to realize that there's actually two ways to handle that. By default, when you start a Zoom meeting, assuming that you're authenticating with Zoom, meaning you actually log into a Zoom client or on the web, you can have a permanent name associated with your Zoom account. So mine is my full name. Depending on the venue you're in and the audience that you're working with, you may want to say Paul. Yeah, I might want to say Paul IT support, or I might want to say something Paul Centrend if I'm not using my branding background here. But if I can share my screen, Steve, I'll show a couple things that you can do either temporarily or permanently The permanent one or persistent one can be live. The nature of Zoom itself and screen sharing, it won't allow me to show you my Zoom interface. I can't share my interface, if that makes sense. So where possible, I'm going to do live explanations, but where it's not possible, we'll have to deal with just some slides here. So let me start with the right here.
There you go.
There we go. And so how to update your name temporarily. What you're going to do, and you can do this now if you want to play with me, or you can just watch and try it later. But if you click at the bottom of your Zoom window, there's a participants list, and you can find yourself on the participant list. Once you do that, if you move your pointer to the right, it'll say more, and you can expand that. When you expand it, you'll see two features, and I'm showing it here. There's edit profile picture, and then there's rename. If you rename here, that's good for that meeting. It doesn't make it permanent. It's just for that meeting. Editing the profile picture, you can do that. You've got to be careful though. If you accidentally put the wrong one in, or if you end up with just a big picture of your nose, that's not what you're trying to achieve. That's not what Lisa and I are here to teach you. So you've got to be really careful about the profile picture. I recommend you do that only in the permanent control online. For the permanent one, I'm going to show you in my own browser here how to do that. Let's see if we click a new window here, and if I go to zoom.com, this is actually my my real account here. I'm just going to move the panel over. So if I want to say my account, there I am. What you're going to do is on the profile for personal, right? You're going to click edit. And that lets you change your real name, but this is the display name. This is the permanent name that will show up every time by default when you start a new meeting or participate in a meeting. Can I share a real quick story, Steve?
Sure, go right ahead.
A near miss I had. So my kids, I have two little girls. I have 6 children actually. Was the 2 youngest ones, I was away on a business trip, and they call me Daddy Dragon. It's just something that they started doing, and they always call me that. Well, I was going to do a Zoom with them that evening. So I went in, and I didn't want to forget. So I went in and I set my name in this interface I'm showing you here to be Daddy Dragon. I changed this to Daddy Dragon so that when I was in the Zoom, they'd say, oh, it's Daddy Dragon. It was funny. It was cute. However, I didn't go back and change it the next morning. So I had a conference Zooming in a couple of vendors from out of state, and my name showed up as Daddy Dragon. Fortunately, I was there early enough that I was able to do the temporary switch that I showed you a minute ago and avoid that embarrassing situation and explanation.
Well, Paul, save that name for when you become a rapper anyway.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay, and so we already had one question in the chat, which is what if you want to try to do a teleprompter cheat, which I was just talking about, which is really to slide something like a Word document right over your main monitor. You don't really need 2 monitors to do that. You could actually have that document minimized at the bottom of your screen and then slide it up and then just read it, because most people can't see that you're looking straight on reading a document. I have used official teleprompters that are free, a free resource on the internet, and they're much more complicated than simply using a Word document and making it large enough so you can really see it and just sliding it in front of you when you need it and then sliding it back down when you don't. Just a suggestion. And I'd like to take credit for having come up with that idea myself, but I was watching a tutorial on how to do better on podcasts, and that was a suggestion. All right, moving along. Let's talk a little bit start with lighting for Zoom. Lisa, your lighting looks great. There's a reason for that.
Okay, so of course, as a photographer, this is my wheelhouse. This is my favorite thing. So I just want to share some tips on lighting. I think lighting is one of the most important things when you're on a Zoom call, besides your content, of course. But, there's a few problems we can have. In the winter time, I remember we were going on some of our business meetings at, 7 in the morning and it was pitch black. And so then you put the light on, everything's dark in your room and you're so bright. And the light looks, I'm going to give you a little example. The light looks something like this, which is awful. No one wants to look like you look, it's kind of scary. So there's a few things, like if it's really dark, you have to have a meeting at night. Just get on as many lights in your room as possible. Bring, buy a lamp, bring one from another room. Just light the background of your room so that you are not like the only thing that's bright. Hopefully that makes sense. Another thing that I like to do with lights is bounce the light off of a wall. And that's really helpful because, again, if your light, I'm just moving this, if it's directly on you, that's just really harsh on your eyes and on people that are watching you, and it can be kind of distracting. So I bounce it. I'm just going to move my computer. This is a wall. I've even got stuff up here, but I just bounce my light off a wall like that. And again, to show you, the difference, if it's on me or if it's bounced off a wall. And then even to give you the difference, I call that a fill light. But if I don't have that light on and I'm just working with the light that's in my room, it's backwards. This side of my face is really dark. So if I just have another little light bounced off the wall beside me, that really helps. I'm going to show you another little thing. This is just a piece of white foam core. You can buy it at any craft store. A great thing. You can, like, if you don't have, maybe there's a bookshelf next to you and you can't really bounce a light off of it. You can just put this little foam core and bounce the light off of that. And it just helps so much with lighting. Or if you've got a really bright light in a window, you can use this to block off a little bit of light. It's kind of fun to play with, and it just makes things go a lot better. Okay, so for the really bright rooms, because now we're in the summer and everything is usually really bright, and not to pick on anyone, but just to help, okay? If there's a lot of bright light behind you, it's hard to see your face and you look a little bit, dull. I'm going to give you an example. We're going to walk around. So here's a really bright light behind me. And even if I open, the windows here, it's just harder to see me when this is behind me. So try to get your light in front of you. You see the difference that makes? I'll even close. And if you can close windows, that really helps. But if you can get the light in front of you instead of behind you, that's super helpful. Let me just see if there's anything else in my notes about lighting. Oh gosh, another one in offices, the fluorescent lights that are over your head and they shine down and they leave this awful, just like yellow, they're called hot spots. Try to get yourself out from being directly under those if you can. If it's right here, just try to move over a little bit. Just do your best to not have the light shining directly on you, unless you, I don't know if we're going to talk about this at the end, but there's different lighting that you can invest in. That's really, really simple. Just like I showed you this light, I don't want to take too much time with it, but this is just a simple desk lamp. Sorry, let me come over here. This is a simple desk lamp. I don't know how much you can see it. That you can swivel it's like $5 or $10 at Target or something like that. You can buy something really simple like that. You can buy ring lights. You can go online. You can get them between $15 up to $80, but there's so many accessories available. And I guess the biggest thing that I want to say is take the time, invest in it, practice with it, because it does make a big difference. I see, there's already been some adjustments in our rooms right here, but just try not to have that really bright behind you. And I'm always open. If you need help with it, I will do a Zoom call with you and help you with your lighting. So anyway, that's my little nutshell on that. But lighting is, it's super important.
Lisa, that was great show and tell. Thank you. And Paul, I want to go to you. You obviously are not in the matrix. although you appear to be.
I feel like it at times.
Can you talk a little bit about background and virtual background?
Sure. Zoom has a built-in virtual background program. The thing that I don't like about it is it only works in Zoom meetings. So if I take all this time to customize a virtual background, I can only use it in Zoom. I can't use it in GoToMeetings. I can't use it in WebExes, etc. So I like to use a tool called XSplit VCam, and that's what this background is done in. Yep. And again, lighting plays a huge role in virtual background success as well. This is a pretty tough background, and you can see a little, actually it's on this side, you can see a little pixelation at times around my head because the lighting isn't quite as good on this side as it is on this side, but it's decent, you know, and it works fairly well most of the time. I'm going to show you what happens if I was to digitally enhance my appearance. Would that be a good thing to show folks,
Sure.
Steve? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
I think to digitally enhance your appearance in Zoom, it's a wonderful feature. It's something that you really have to be careful with, and there's a couple of ground rules. The very first and most important ground rule is what Lisa just talked about. You absolutely must start with the best possible lighting you can. In lieu of that, that's when you can go ahead with the digital enhancements. So if I was to say, go to video settings and adjust my lighting. So I'm gonna, and I'll show a slide in a moment, because again, I can't show you my controls because that's just the nature of Zoom. So if I was to digitally enhance my lighting, here we go. Not changing anything physically. This is all Zoom doing this. You all have the access to do this right now to digitally enhance. But again, starting with good light, then you have something to enhance. If your lighting is terrible and it's real bright here and real dark here, or you've got that hot spot on top, it's just going to make that worse. So you've got to start with decent lighting and amplify it with the Zoom tools. Another nice thing is touching up your appearance. So if you look closely at my forehead, right? I have a few more wrinkles than I'm allowing you to see right now, right? But if I was to use Zooms to touch up my forehead, see how they just disappeared, right? I should work for a cosmetic company, right? There it is off, there it is on. You just be careful. Now I look kind of like a cartoon character, right? It looks like porcelain. So you don't want to go too crazy with that, but you know, a little bit of that is nice. It really does just make you pop a little bit better. And right now we're not in person. We're not physically in contact with each other. It's harder to get a feel for anybody. So I think appearance is good, like Steve opened with, you know, a nice iron shirt, but you want to look good. And I think that these tools really help with that. Steve, I can go into detail and show those controls if you'd like me to, or we can move on, and that's your call.
Well, first of all, what I want to say is, and it's already been asked in the chat, will we be sharing specific links to some of these tools and tricks? And that's what I'd like to do in a follow-up email to everybody. We'll send you the links and the details.
Sure.
So, as well as the recording of this, God forbid if you want to watch it again. But Paul, why don't you show us, maybe, if you don't mind, what you had in mind?
Yeah, sure. Share the screen again here. Okay, so this is again the ground rules. Start with the best possible lighting. Keep your Zoom client up to date. Those are the two ground rules I have for you. Zoom does not update like typical applications. Most applications almost harass you, right? To the point of harassment where you got to update, time to update, new version available, update now. Zoom doesn't do that, which is a good thing. But if you want access to the latest features here, you really have to keep your Zoom up to date. The way you do that, and I'm showing you this on a PC, but it's very, very similar on a Mac. Once you open Zoom, if you click your profile on the top right, this expands and you'll see check for updates right there. I don't recommend you do that right now because it could interrupt your experience with us here. But once you've updated, then it will tell you if there's an update available. If it is, it'll automatically download it and then it will let you click a button to apply it. They're telling us that auto update will soon be available as an option. I thought it was going to be in this build, but I couldn't find it. So I don't think that it is in this build yet. That'll be good when that hits. And then this is the control that I was using to touch up my appearance and to adjust for low light. Make sure if you try this though, that you change it to manual. If you leave it on auto, then the slider doesn't appear. If it's on manual, you can play with this to determine how you like the lighting to be. Lisa was talking about window light and natural light. If you've got a lot of natural light in the room, you may have to turn down your low light in that situation. When it's dark or early morning, you might have to turn it up a little bit to try to compensate for it as much as you can.
Okay, thanks, Paul. And Lisa, I want to go to you. Any general suggestions about looking good on Zoom? I mean, I always tell people, make sure you close the door and let children, dogs, and angry lovers know that you're on an important call. Do you have additional strategies that you recommend to clients to avoid major distractions during an important call?
Oh, well, I think you kind of hit them right there. So this morning I had to take the dog down to my son's room and say, please keep him in here because he barks at everything that goes by. Let people know that you're going to be on a meeting. Clean up your background. So when my daughter went to college, I inherited her room as my office, and I love it. It has great lighting and everything. Well, she came home last week, a week and a half ago, and my office became, it was her room again. And so I had to clean out. This background would not be like it is right now. So, take the time to make it look nice like that.
Okay, looks nice.
Steve, one of the questions we had was about where to find virtual backgrounds. If Paul or Lisa want to chime in on that, what are some of the more popular ones?
Yeah.
What I use, I can just say, and then Paul, you probably have the more technical ones. I'm a photographer too, but I get pictures that I really like. So I've got a virtual background that's the cityscape of Boston. I try to do different colors, and you can just download a photograph that you have from your computer. But I think it's important to play with it, put yourself in it, and see, like what Paul was saying, because sometimes, like, I've got curlier hair, so there'll be spots of background between, and that can be problematic on a virtual background. So, sometimes, like what he has is a more solid color one. Those often work best. Something with a lot of different things in it can tend to not work as well. If your hair, like if you've got something in the background that's the same color as your hair, it's going to have a really hard time picking it up. So you want to find backgrounds that are a little bit opposite that way. But Paul can probably tell you more about virtual ones.
Yeah, and I saw a question in the chat. Do you need a green screen? The answer is no. You don't need a green screen. In fact, when I use a green screen, sometimes it makes certain artifacts, that's called artifacting, when you see like pixelation, it makes them look green. So that is definitely not something I would recommend. Lisa, you could talk more about when a green screen is appropriate. I can just tell from my experience that it hasn't worked well. Could I shut off my virtual background real quick and just show you what it looks like behind me?
Sure.
There it is. And notice I'd have a huge issue if I didn't have those blinds there because of what Lisa was talking about. I would have bright light streaming in this room, and I would look real dark, and all you would see is this white light behind me, which will look mystical, but not really what we're going for here.
It's painful to, people's eyes. If you're looking into something really bright, your eyes naturally close down, your pupils do, and then you can't really see the person well, and that just doesn't work so well in trying to communicate.
That's right. Some don't like virtual backgrounds. They find it distracting. I've gotten compliments on mine. I've never had anybody tell me that they don't like it. Some people don't like them, and I respect that. I understand that.
Paul, are there specific apps out there that you use? I know I've dabbled with Canva to create a virtual background. Are there things that you recommend?
I created the actual artwork in Adobe Photoshop,
Okay.
and then I'm using XSplit VCam. I put a link in the chat to the software that I use. There's a free demo available if you want to download it and play with it. If you only use Zoom, then you can use Zoom's feature instead.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And there was also another question in the chat about audio. How do you enhance audio? You can see that I've got this fancy microphone boom. It's really just a prop, it's plastic. It doesn't work at all. But
But it looks good.
thank you.
That's
It's all about the appearance.
Exactly the intent. So, but do you have recommendations for audio?
I think you've got to start with a quality audio device, whatever it is. Do I sound okay?
You do.
Great. So I'm using a Logitech HD 1080p webcam with built-in dual speakers. It's located right over my, you can't see, right over my monitor here. And, you know, that works for me. I prefer that rather than having a boom mic. Even when I record my podcasts, I use the same setup. Yeah. Folks
Okay.
still struggle sometimes with audio and video problems in Zoom. I can talk to that if you'd like me to, Steve. I've got a couple of slides prepared on how you can troubleshoot these types of issues if that's of interest.
Sure. Why don't you bring that up? And I'm going to just comment that I was kidding that my microphone is just a prop. I bought all of this for $50 on Amazon, and I will share the link in a follow-up with everybody because it's actually one of my clients was using it and getting tremendous sound, and he shared the link with me. I'm happy to share with you. Back to you, Paul. It's all yours.
Very good. Okay, here's the slide on video. So to fix video problems, there's a couple reasons why people can't see you. Really, there's two. You've either got an invalid driver selected, or you've got your video off. So in the bottom of your Zoom presentation, you all know this if you have your video on right now, you can mute yourself and you can turn your video on and off. So one of two things are going to happen when you click that. It's going to work, or you're going to get an error like this one: cannot start video, failed to start the video camera. So what do you do about that? Well, down in the bottom left, again, your red line here indicates that your video is not running. If the video is not running and you can't enable it because you're getting that error, you're going to click this little up arrow right here. Once you do that, you'll want to check to make sure you've got a valid camera selected. If I had Logi Capture, that's something else. That's for screen capturing. It's not for video streaming. So if I was using that last and I didn't check it before I started my Zoom call, then I would have this problem that I'm describing right now. You can choose the video driver, camera driver right here, and then try and start your video. If it still doesn't start, then the next action is going to be dependent on whether you're on a laptop or a desktop. If you're on a laptop, it probably has a built-in camera, in which case you've probably got to leave the meeting and restart your computer to try to fix it, because it's a driver issue. It can't talk to the camera. If it's an external camera like mine is on my desktop, I can unplug the video camera, count to 5, plug it back in again, and then see if I can get the video to turn on. That would be my advice there. Audio problems are similar in nature. A lot of times it doesn't work because you've got the wrong audio device selected. I use a whole host of microphones and earphones on my computer. So I have this problem frequently where I just happen to have the wrong one selected. Not a big deal if you know where to look. So you go down to where you would unmute yourself, you click the little up arrow, and then you're going to see a list of all the different sources for your microphone and for the speaker. So in this scenario, if other participants can't hear you or you can't hear them, there's two different sections to look. If they can't hear you, make sure that the microphone that's selected here is the one you're actually trying to use. If you can't hear them, make sure that the right speaker is selected. So here on the top, microphone Corsair ST100, well, that's my headset, and I'm talking to you through my webcam. So if that was actually selected right now, you wouldn't hear a thing I'm saying, and it would be a very fast fix. You click it, turn on the mic, you'd be good. Same thing with the speaker. If I can't hear you, it might be going through the wrong device. A lot of times, same as system is the best option here.
Okay.
But I like to specifically select the microphone.
And so, in a generic question, Lisa, what about, I think it's a little bit different on a webinar versus a Zoom meeting with a client or colleague. What are your thoughts about not appearing on camera at all?
Ooh, okay. So if you're doing a professional meeting, it's vital to be on the camera. We've all been in meetings where people don't go on, and it just seems like they don't really care, or they're multitasking, or maybe they're not even there. You know, if you have to do something like, I don't know, put on your what do you call it? You know, turn your camera off for a second and turn it back on. But if you're in a meeting, it's vital to be there. You know, just like if you had a meeting at work and you had to, you know, show up in person, you would show up. So yeah, that one.
Yes,
Definitely.
the digital equivalent of getting up and leaving the room is what it's going to be interpreted as, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So
And then,
can I say one more
sure.
thing with that? So then on the other hand, if you do have to, you get up and leave the room for a minute, might be in a long meeting and you've had a lot of coffee. It is also vitally important to have a great headshot on there so that when you turn your camera off for a second, your face is still there. And, you know, of course, being a photographer, that's like I'm like, yes, do this. So, you know, just wherever you are, get yourself a good headshot and get it on there so that when you do have to leave for a moment, it's on there. And that, yeah, like Joe just put his up. That's great.
Mhm.
Because if you have to step out for a second, you don't want it to just be, and Lois, I took Lois's picture. You don't want it just to have your name up there. You do want people to still feel like you're there. And if it's just for a few moments, that's fine. But if it's, you know, you're just not showing up at all, that's a big no-no.
So Alex Weatherall had a question. Alex?
Yeah, thank you. I don't have a Zoom subscription myself, but I can, you know, I have an account and I can get on there. But the question I have is, how do you, like when I click stop video, just my name appears. But how do you program it so that instead of my name, my, you know, my still picture, my still headshot appears?
That's in
Yeah.
settings, right, Paul?
Right. So you can do it temporarily, as I showed earlier, or you can log into your Zoom account. Even if it's not a paid account, you still have access to your profile. You can set your display name. You can edit your profile picture.
So I've tried, yeah, but I've been paying attention. I tried that and it doesn't happen. Maybe I need to shut down and restart before it'll take effect then, because
It could be. Are you trying it on the website or are you trying it in your Zoom client?
well, certainly on the website. How would I try it right now?
To try it right now, you would find your name in the participant list.
Yeah.
And then next to your name, hovering over your name, I should say, it turns into a little more with an arrow.
Yeah.
You click that, and that's where you can edit your profile picture or rename yourself.
Because when I hit more, all it shows is rename. So, okay, maybe it's just a limitation.
Alex, if you want, I can send you a picture of me to put in.
Alex, did you say you have a Zoom account or you don't have one?
I don't pay Zoom, you know, to use their service, but I have a Zoom account. You see what I mean?
Right, but if you're not logged into the account, it may not allow you to use that feature because it doesn't know your profile if you're not logged into it. And it's also possible that they took that functionality away for free users. That is possible. But last time I worked with someone that did not have a paid account, I showed them this and they were able to change it.
Okay.
Sheldon, do you have a question?
Yeah, well, I've had that same issue. And when I run a meeting, my picture will show. But when I join somebody else's meeting, even if I've logged in, I think I've tried it a couple times. I think if I've logged into Zoom to my account before I start the meeting, sometimes it doesn't show up here. The only time that it really shows every time is when I have a meeting, you know, that I've called, and that's when it'll show. So that's what I was trying to, like Paul said, if you log in beforehand, but I'm not sure that was working all the time.
So logging into the website is different from logging into the app on your PC. So you need to launch the Zoom app and then join the meeting link.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Then it will know your profile.
So let me, before we go too far down that rabbit hole, in general, are there recommendations for webcams that will improve your appearance? Either Lisa or Paul.
I mentioned the Logitech HD 1080. I think you probably want a 1080p or higher webcam. Lisa, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Yeah, just I don't actually use a webcam. I have the camera that's on my laptop, and that's worked fine for me. So that's not something I've invested in, but if you're going to, you want to get something that's good quality.
Yeah, the problem with some of the lesser ones, the knockoffs, if you will, is they'll snap in and out of focus. It'll look like I'm doing this when I'm really not even moving. Also, the snapping in and out of focus. Lighting will shift in the middle of, without changing the lighting in the environment. It's trying to auto detect, and the technology is not as good, and it just shifts around. It's very distracting.
And we're really talking about an inexpensive item, right? It's probably under $50.
Or less.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
that's right.
Okay.
They were very scarce for a while, so that the knockoff brands became popular during the pandemic crisis. But the market has opened up, the supplies are in, and you can get a good webcam at a fair price now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. And one of the things I want to mention as just a networking tip, one of the things I do on most of my meetings is I will disconnect my second monitor and do a control print screen so that I can capture the view of the entire audience, or at least the first page of the audience. And then I'll paste that into a Word document. And then I will have that as a file to remember who was at that meeting. I can actually take notes around who was at that meeting. And in addition to that, I will then go in and copy and paste the chat and paste that into that Microsoft Word document as well, so that I have everything in one place. And I found that going back to meetings, it was really helpful to find links, to find people, all the detail. It's just a little thing that has been very effective for me. And I don't have to take attendance either. So there you go.
Wow.
So what, and here's another general question for Paul and Lisa. What about folks who are obviously writing their novel while they're on a call with you, or training their Rottweiler, or building a model airplane? Any thoughts on the amount of activity you should be showing while you're on a Zoom call?
Just not paying attention. I mean, I would find it very rude. I mean, if it were me as the presenter or speaker, and you've got people, doing a Rubik's Cube or something.
You got to do it at least down by your waist so that no one.
My personal feeling is I don't want to act any differently than if I was in person with you. I think you need to behave the same way.
Yes. Yep. Show people the respect. They're taking their time to be with you. Take your time to be with them. Don't try to multitask. I feel like, especially as women, we do that so often. Give yourself permission to just be in the moment, be present in the moment, and don't feel like you have to get 5 other things done at the same time, men and women.
Right. Men are good at being nowhere, actually. So never mind multitasking. All right. I want to get to managing security, Paul, because that's a big issue in a lot of ways. And I'm going to give you that sort of big topic to maybe expand upon.
Sure. Let me share my screen again. Let's see. Yeah, security is definitely paramount. Zoom has done a lot to enhance security, but the onus is still going to be on you to make sure that you keep your own meetings secure. And there's different ways to do it, and I'll quickly cover those, and we can talk in more detail if we need to. the first thing is there's something called personal meeting rooms versus unique meeting numbers. If you log into your Zoom app and you click start a meeting, that's not going to launch your personal meeting room. That's going to launch a unique meeting number with a randomly generated password. Then you could send that link to someone else, or you could be on the phone with them saying, yeah, jump on the meeting. We're going to create right now. And here's the meeting ID and the password, you know. Those are, then the personal meeting though, that's more for a permanent link and password combination. So I like to use the personal meeting room for internal team meetings when I have the same set of participants again and again participating in it. I don't have to send them a new link. They don't have to wonder if they've got the right link. I know that they're going to always have it. I don't have to think in advance, 9 o'clock team meeting Thursday, got to send the link around. I don't have to do that, okay? The unique meeting numbers is the default new meeting I mentioned, and it's great for one time or one-time events like this one, for example. I'm not sure if this was a personal meeting number or a unique meeting number. My assumption is Steve would have made this a unique number, but meetings where participants change and you want to have some control over who has the link, who's, you know, if they've registered for it. Meetings of a sensitive or private nature. A great example is someone that does financial planning and they have back-to-back Zoom meetings. Well, they shouldn't use their personal meeting room for that, because if a meeting should go over and the next participant jump on, then they're hearing all the confidential discussion that is going on in the meeting room. So I really like that. A feature that I don't like about it is the waiting rooms. Waiting rooms are annoying, and it puts a lot of work on the host because the host has to be paying attention. The host isn't paying attention, you could have people waiting to get in your meeting that you have to click admit on every one of those or admit all to get them all in there. If someone drops the call and has to rejoin for, say, an internet dropout, you've got to go and, as the host, you've got to go admit them again. So it's a lot of work and it causes a lot of problems. I don't like that feature. There are times when it's appropriate, if, again, sensitive meetings where you want to make absolutely sure you know who's on the meeting, then it can work well.
Okay.
One more thought on
Yeah.
that. What do you do if there's a breach? If someone is in the meeting that should not be there, or, you know, they're showing inappropriate content on their webcam or whatever the heck's happening, or they're saying something they shouldn't be, you can click security as the host, click security, suspend participant activities. That mutes everyone, stops everyone's video. And then you can look at the participant list and get a handle on what's happening here and what the breach is. At that point, too, you might enable the waiting room, because if they have the link, that bad actor could jump back onto the meeting again. So in that case, I would encourage enabling the waiting room on the fly so that you would be able to prevent that person from rejoining and corrupting your meeting.
Okay, that was very good. All right. I think we're at a point where I mean, we've all experienced interesting things on Zoom over the last year. Everyone has a funny story to tell, or an appalling story to tell, or maybe even a triumphant story to tell. I'm wondering if we have anybody who wants to raise their hand and tell us something interesting that they've experienced that might be useful in particular for the rest of us. I can start by telling you I was on a call very similar to this that was another learning webinar that we were managing, and I think there were about 40 people on at that time, and the topic was word of mouth advertising, how to generate referrals from pre-existing strategic partners. And the speaker was speaking, a national speaker who was very compelling, and thank goodness everyone was watching him. But all of a sudden, somebody took their pants off. And fortunately, I had been coached beforehand that all you have to do, one of the ways, I mean, Paul gave you a general sense of how to do that, which is a very good way and an upgraded way. But one of the fast ways to do it is to go to anybody's little square click on those three little dots at the top of their square if you're the host or their co-host, and then you can hit remove and they're gone. So in the case of after I panicked and broke out into a heavy sweat, that person was gone in about less than 15 seconds. And there were no lawsuits involved. And we carried on. And ironically, the only person who saw that activity was me and the speaker. And to this day, it's still a joke between only us. And it wasn't caught on the recording,
Right.
because that person's frame was not lit up. They weren't making noise, thank goodness. So I'd like to hear from perhaps you, if you have an interesting story to share as well. It'd be hard to imagine that you don't, given a year of probably Zooming more than once a day. Anybody?
Well, Steve, I can say that when a person is going to give you, if you're hosting it, and the person is going to give you a PowerPoint that you help run, you really want to get it before the meeting. And I've always made a rule of getting it before the meeting. Well, it was a Rotary little council call, and the little old ladies that had the Zoom thing didn't send it to me. So once they got on the call, I said, I don't have your presentation. Oh, I didn't send it to you, Lois. You know, one of those type, right? So you say, yes, ma'am. Finally, she sends it. The meeting has already started. She sent it to another Gmail account. I'm trying to run the meeting. I have to take my phone, move this thing over, get the thing done. And luckily, I managed to get the thing done. And they sent me this wonderful thank you note the next day. But really, just make a point of get that PowerPoint, to be persistent. It was a nightmare. I pulled it off, but it was a lot harder to run that meeting when I had to keep doing multitasking to get it done. So that was my horror story of making sure the little ladies do send you their PowerPoint before the meeting.
Good one.
Be persistent.
Stephanie?
Good one.
Yeah.
Stephanie, go ahead.
So not only for work, but some of you know that I am on the board of directors for the Massachusetts State PTA. So we run a lot of webinars and meetings for local units and parents and educators. So we've had a lot of issues with people having their mics on and not realizing and hearing conversations that we should not be hearing. Yep. And to Lois's point, whenever we're running a webinar or anything, we always try to do a practice ahead of time with the person so that they're comfortable. You never know where somebody else's comfort level is, but also making sure that more than one person is a co-host or involved in that, because internet can be a little crazy sometimes. You know, some people are okay with the hardwired to their systems, but most people are just on Wi-Fi, and you never know when the kid's going to turn on the smart TV, use the phone and something else, and all of a sudden you're down. So having those backups in place, we've had those issues where all of a sudden our presenter's gone, and being prepared for that. Those are my stories. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Anybody else have a funny moment I want to share? One of the things I will mention is that I recommend you always turn off the tennis channel in the background before you start a Zoom meeting, because not everybody wants to be caught up on what's going on at the French Open, as I do.
Well, you and the other person who watches that channel, Steve, can take that under advisement.
Yeah, that's true. Good point.
You know, Steve, another thing that I can share is when you log on a phone versus on your computer, that can be tricky sometimes. We have, our church has had online Zoom meetings a lot. And sometimes people will log in on the phone and you don't, like on the computer, it seems really obvious if your camera is on or if you're muted, and you don't always see that on the phone. So being really careful if you log in on the phone, because sometimes people are carrying their phone, you know, like this, and you're seeing up their nostril, you know, or you're seeing, or they're holding it like below their belly and you're seeing up their you know, it's just like, oh, you feel really embarrassed for them. So, I mean, that's just being really aware when you log in on a phone versus a computer.
Right. And I think another good tip is try to watch the chat. I know that I've sent private notes to people of, you know, take your hat off, bring your sound up, whatever it might be, and they just never look at the chat, so they're not getting that message. So it's nice to be aware of some of the other tools that are in motion when you're having a conversation. Anybody else have any anecdotes they'd like to share? Barbara?
Yes, what you said, Lisa, about a phone or an iPad. Some people have no concept of where the camera is, so it's so distracting when you're trying to focus on other people, and then if you're showing gallery view or any place, multiple people, having the hand in front of the screen and all that motion is very distracting. Thanks
Right.
for saying that.
Yeah.
You can get a little nauseous.
Right. And I think the other thing is don't take a road trip while you're on Zoom. Don't walk around your house, because the rest of us don't need that. It really is. I need Dramamine by the time they get to their kitchen.
That reminds me of a one-on-one meeting I had with someone recently, and they were on their laptop and they were sitting on a couch with their laptop on their lap, right? And you can imagine what that looked like. It was kind of like this, while we're talking. That was a tough one. I didn't say anything to the person, but man, that was hard to get through, I got to admit.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we're coming to the very end of our hour together. Any final comments and advice, Lisa or Paul? Or yeah.
Okay, so really quickly, because we didn't really talk that much about camera angle and that, I feel like people here are doing a really good job, but have your camera up at least at eye level, because when it's low, it's just, I'm not going to show you because I don't want that to be permanently recorded. But whatever the center of your body is, cameras are wide angle. It makes that ultra wide, and that's not that flattering. And then also just really trying to look, and it's so hard to look into the camera. So someone said that, but know where your camera is and try to look into it, because you probably feel my eye contact here a lot better than if I were looking down at, now I can look at all of you. But up here, then you feel like I'm looking at you. And so especially when you're speaking, if you can look into that camera a little bit more, it makes people feel really connected in the eye contact. So knowing where your camera is, and if you have two monitors, make sure you know which one, where the camera is there, and try to just really connect. It is something to practice because it's not easy to do, but it is worth it because people do feel your connection to them better. And that's really what we want. We want people to be able to feel connected with us while we are virtual instead of in person.
Okay, thank you. Paul, any parting words?
I think the best advice, if there was one message I'd like to have you all walk away with, it would be to present yourself as best you can, just as you would in person. Present yourself as best you can in a Zoom meeting. And that's kind of combining all the techniques and strategies Lisa and I have been talking about today.
Okay. Well, great. Well, thank you, everyone. Unless anyone has a parting question, we will wrap up and we will follow up with a recording of this and some of the links and a little bit of follow-up advice. But I appreciate everybody's participation and involvement with this. Feel free to email me or Joe if there are other topics you'd like to hear about. We do this once a month, and we find that it's a really good way to learn something and break through the social isolation that we're still experiencing and hopefully moving away from. So thank you, everyone, and I will catch you down the road.